Welcome, dear friend, as we continue this quiet path together. I am grateful that you are here, listening in this gentle moment. Tonight, we return to the ancient wisdom that softens the restless mind and guides the heart toward deep inner stillness. You are welcome to notice the hour and the place where you rest now, but for this moment, nothing is required of you. I will share with you a series of calm Zen-inspired reflections, each one offered as a doorway into clarity and ease. Every story carries a simple truth meant to loosen the knots of worry, fear, and endless inner noise. These are not merely stories for sleep. They are echoes of understanding passed down by those who learned how to rest within themselves. They knew something many of us have forgotten. Peace does not come from fixing the outer world, but from gently reshaping the way the mind meets it. The Buddha once taught that an unguarded mind can wound us more deeply than any external enemy. Tonight, you will begin to learn how to guide the mind with patience, kindness, and calm awareness. As these timeless reflections unfold, you may sense a quiet change taking place within you. The tightness held in the body may begin to soften. The sharp edges of thought may blur into silence. Without effort, you may drift toward a state of ease, where understanding and rest naturally arise. So allow yourself to settle now. Let the body grow heavy, supported by the earth beneath you. Take one slow, gentle breath with me. And as you release it, trust that you are ready to receive what has always been waiting. Now, let us enter a story about the weight we carry when we hold what was never meant for our hands. In a distant mountain monastery, there lived a young monk named Quanji. His face was often serious, his brow quietly tense, as familiar to the temple as the sound of the bell at dawn. Each day, he walked as if the entire world rested upon him. The sorrow of all beings pressed against his heart like a stone growing heavier with every hour. He spent long nights in meditation, his body still, yet his mind strained. He read countless sutras, searching desperately for a way to ease what felt unbearable. Over time, the weight became so great that Quanji struggled to move through daily life. His duties felt slow and difficult, as though each step passed through thick earth. At last, unable to endure any longer, he approached his teacher, the elderly Zen master Ryodan, who sat quietly repairing a torn paper screen as afternoon light filtered through the room. "Master," Quanji said softly, his voice trembling, "I am crushed by the suffering of the world. The ignorance, the endless cycles of pain, it is too much for me to hold. How can I possibly carry such a burden?" Ryodan continued his careful work, placing a small brush of paste upon the tear. Without lifting his gaze, he replied gently, "Then put it down." Quanji froze. "Put it down?" he repeated. "But master, this is the suffering of all beings. I vowed to help them. How can I abandon this responsibility?" The old teacher paused and asked quietly, "Who asked you to pick it up?" Silence filled the room. The question echoed within Quanji like a bell sounding through empty space. He looked at his hands and saw they were clenched tightly, grasping something unseen and immense. Slowly, with awareness, he opened his fingers. In that release, he did not betray his vow. Instead, he let go of a burden he was never meant to carry alone. The suffering of the world still existed, but his relationship to it had changed. It was not something to bear, but something to meet with openness and care. The Buddha taught that anger does not punish us. We are punished by holding it. This wisdom reveals how suffering often arises from our struggle against it. Quanji's pain was not the world itself, but his attachment to carrying it personally. Why do we so easily accept burdens that do not belong to us? Zen teachings point to this gently. First, we cling to the role of rescuer, mistaking ego for compassion. True compassion flows from understanding, not from self-importance. Second, we misunderstand what it means to help. Taking on another's pain does not dissolve it. Often, it leaves us exhausted and empty, unable to offer true presence. A wounded healer cannot pour from a dry well. Third, we resist the truth of suffering itself. Buddhism teaches that suffering is part of existence. When we fight this reality, we create frustration and helplessness within ourselves. Notice how often during the day you absorb emotions that are not yours. The worries of others, the choices you cannot control, the weight of distant troubles. See how this habit quietly drains your strength. A Zen teacher once said that pain is the friction between expectation and reality. When we expect ourselves to fix everything, that friction becomes suffering. This story reminds us that compassion includes wisdom. We can care without caring. We can help without attachment. We can respond without claiming responsibility for the entire world. In Zen practice, this is gentle detachment, not coldness, but clarity. Knowing when our actions serve life, and when they serve only the ego's desire for control. Quanji's open hands show us this truth. Closed fists grasp and strain. Open hands can hold softly and release freely. They offer help without clinging to outcomes. Now, as you rest in this quiet moment, notice if you are holding any unseen weight. Are there worries beyond your reach? Can you soften your grip and allow them to rest? The Buddha taught that one candle can light thousands without growing dim. When we stop carrying the darkness and instead nurture our inner light, we discover we illuminate far more than we ever could by struggle alone. Rest now. You are already enough. Our next reflection gently reveals how our ideas about giving and receiving can quietly obscure the true nature of generosity. This is a story often remembered as the giver is the one who should be grateful. In a humble temple resting at the edge of a distant village, there lived a Zen teacher named Shaku. His insight was respected far beyond the village paths, yet the temple itself held very little. The monks sometimes rested with empty stomachs, and the wooden halls showed signs of age and wear. In time, word of Master Shaku's virtue reached a wealthy merchant. The merchant believed that a grand donation would earn him great spiritual merit and public admiration. One morning, he arrived at the temple with great display. He carried a heavy sack filled with gold coins, dressed in fine garments, accompanied by servants who would witness his generosity. With visible pride, he presented the offering to Master Shaku. "Master," he announced loudly, "I have brought this gift to support your temple. May it serve you and your monks well." Master Shaku accepted the weighty sack, bowed his head slightly, and said only, "You have done well. You may go now." The merchant stood frozen. He had expected praise, gratitude, perhaps a ceremony. Instead, he was dismissed as casually as one who had offered a single grain of rice. "Wait," the merchant protested, his face flushing. "I have given you a fortune. Is that all you have to say? Do I deserve no gratitude for my generosity?" Master Shaku looked at him calmly, his eyes as still as a mountain lake. "The giver should be thankful," he said softly. "You were given the chance to practice generosity. I merely allowed you the opportunity to give. The true benefit belongs to you." The merchant, so often admired and praised, found himself without words. He left the temple unsettled, the master's teaching echoing within him. For the first time, he began to understand that true giving is not a transaction, but a quiet grace for which the giver is grateful. The Buddha taught that generosity brings joy at every stage of its expression. Joy arises in the intention to give, in the act of giving itself, and in the gentle remembrance of having given. This wisdom reveals the merchant's misunderstanding. We often approach generosity as exchange. We give, expecting something in return, gratitude, recognition, or approval. Why is this so difficult for us? Buddhism teaches that the ego seeks validation. When we give with expectation, we are not practicing generosity, but reinforcing an image of ourselves. This subtle attachment transforms love into control. It says, "I will give, but you must make me feel worthy." The receiver becomes indebted, not for the gift, but for performing gratitude. Notice how this appears in daily life. A held door, a met thanks. A favor remembered and tallied. An act of service quietly tied to recognition. Zen Master Dogen taught, "To give is to receive." When giving is free of expectation, the joy arises immediately, independent of response. True generosity is one of the perfections that lead toward awakening. Yet it remains pure only when untouched by ego. The story also reminds us that receiving is its own form of giving. By accepting the merchant's gift simply, Master Shaku offered him growth. Sometimes, the greatest kindness is allowing another to give. When we receive gracefully, we offer others the gift of expressing their care. Zen practice cultivates egoless generosity, giving without scorekeeping and receiving without burden. Tonight, as you rest, notice the gifts you have offered and those you have accepted. Where might expectation have dimmed the joy? Can you recall a moment of pure giving, free and open? The Buddha once said that if we truly understood giving, we would never let a meal pass without sharing it somehow. Not for praise, but for the quiet happiness that flows from an open heart. Now, let us continue gently onward with a story about names and reality, and the difference between our labels and what truly stands before us. This is known as the cat's true name. In a peaceful monastery famed for its gardens, there lived a cat beloved by the head monk. Its fur mirrored autumn leaves, its eyes gleamed like polished jade. The monk, deeply fond of the creature, gave it a long and poetic name, Jewel of the Dharma at Dawn. The monks repeated the name with reverence, until it became woven into daily life. One morning, a visiting Zen master arrived, known for clarity and directness. As he walked the garden paths, he noticed the cat chasing a butterfly. With great enthusiasm and little skill, it leapt, missed, tumbled, and tried again. A young monk pointed proudly. "Master," he said, "that is our jewel of the Dharma at dawn." The visiting teacher watched quietly as the cat leapt once more, missed completely, and landed awkwardly in the grass. "That," the master said gently, "is not jewel of the Dharma at dawn. It is simply a cat, and at this moment, a rather clumsy one. Names," he explained, "are layers placed upon reality. What exists beneath them remains unchanged." The monk stood still, reflecting. The Buddha taught that things are neither what they appear to be, nor otherwise. We confuse concepts for truth. This story shows how easily we cling to mental constructions, missing what is directly before us. We live through labels and stories, rarely meeting life as it is. Zen invites us to return to direct seeing, quiet, simple, and awake. Now, as your breath slows, allow the mind to loosen its labels. Let things be exactly as they are. Rest here. From our earliest years, we learn to move through life using words, ideas, and names. This ability is useful and necessary, yet it quietly creates a thin veil between ourselves and direct experience. Notice how often during the day a thought replaces what is actually happening. You may meet someone and think, a difficult person, rather than simply hearing their voice or observing their actions in this moment. You may label an experience as boring or exciting, and then respond to the label instead of the sensations unfolding within you. Living this way creates subtle suffering. First, we cling to ideas of how things should be, and resistance arises when life does not follow our concepts. Second, we lose the freshness of each moment, meeting familiar categories instead of living reality. Third, our labels narrow perception. When we see Jewel of the Dharma at dawn, we may miss a simple cat needing food or care. When we see my difficult colleague, we may miss the chance for understanding. Zen practice nurtures what is called beginner's mind, sometimes known as don't know mind. It is the ability to meet each moment freshly, without the weight of assumptions. This does not mean rejecting language or ideas, but holding them gently, remembering they are tools, not truth. The visiting master demonstrated this clarity. He was not dismissing affection for the cat. He was pointing toward what exists before names arise. In that moment, there was only a cat, awkward, playful, fully alive. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that the true miracle is not walking on water, but walking peacefully upon the earth. To walk on earth is to meet life as it is, not as we imagine it should be. Seeing clearly requires soft awareness. When you notice yourself labeling, you may gently ask, what is happening right now beneath this word? When stories arise, you can return to sensation, sound, breath, touch. Names are not the enemy. Jewel of the Dharma at dawn is a beautiful expression of love. Yet when poetry replaces presence, we drift away from living truth. Tonight, as your evening unfolds, notice the difference between thinking about an action and experiencing it directly. Taste the tea itself. Feel the breath as it moves. The Buddha advised not to accept anything simply because it is spoken, repeated, or widely believed. But when something is known through direct seeing and brings benefit and peace, then let it guide your life. Truth is found in observation, not in the elegance of names. Now, let us turn gently to a story about discovering quiet gifts within what first appears as loss. This is known as the value of a leaking roof. At the edge of a forest village, there lived a Zen poet named Shiki. His hut was old and weathered. The walls were thin, the floor creaked, and the roof had surrendered long ago to wind and rain. Yet within this humble shelter, Shiki lived with ease. He wrote poems, tended a small garden, and found beauty in ordinary days. One autumn night, dark clouds gathered heavily. The wind rose, rain fell in sheets, and soon a fierce storm swept the land. Trees bent low, branches broke, and the night roared with movement. At the storm's height, a powerful gust tore away a large section of Shiki's roof. Rain poured inside, soaking his books and bedding. Water dripped from exposed beams, pooling on the floor. By morning, the storm had passed. A neighbor, Tanaka, came to check on him. He expected distress. Instead, he found Shiki seated calmly, sipping tea, gazing upward through the open roof. "What a disaster!" Tanaka exclaimed. "Your home is ruined. You must be miserable." Shiki smiled softly. "Because of this opening," he said, "I watched the moon all night. I saw clouds race across the sky, stars appear and vanish like old friends. The storm gave me a gift I did not know I needed." He later wrote a haiku. "The thief left it behind, the moon at my window." Tanaka shook his head in wonder. Where he saw only damage, Shiki found beauty. The Buddha taught that happiness is not found at the end of a path. Happiness is the path. Shiki did not wait for repair to allow contentment. Most of us divide life into good and bad. When something is lost, we focus on absence, missing what may be revealed. Why is this so difficult? Because we cling to fixed ideas of how life should unfold. Any change feels like failure, yet change often opens new doors. Our culture teaches us to fix problems quickly, rarely asking what they might offer. Think of times when plans fell apart. Did something unexpected emerge? A deeper conversation, a new direction, a gentler pace? Alan Watts once said that the only way to understand change is to move with it. Shiki moved with the storm. The farmer looked and saw damage. The poet saw an opening. Both were true. This does not mean ignoring practical needs. Shiki would repair the roof, but his openness spared him the suffering of resistance. Buddhism speaks of the lotus, growing from mud, not despite it. Difficulty often contains the conditions for insight. The storm took the roof, but left the moon. Zen practice teaches flexible attachment. We care deeply without demanding permanence. Tonight, as you reflect on disruptions, can you sense any quiet gift they may have revealed? The Buddha taught that 3 things matter in the end: how well we lived, how well we loved, and how gently we learned to let go. A leaking roof reminds us that letting go does not mean giving up. It means seeing the moon when expectations fall away. Our next story explores the difference between spiritual ideas and true awakening. This teaching is sometimes remembered as not quite a Buddha. After many years of devoted Zen training, a sincere student named Kenji felt certain that he had finally reached the awakening he had pursued for so long. He had studied countless teachings, sat through endless hours of meditation, and followed his master's guidance with unwavering discipline. Then one day, something shifted. His understanding seemed to open suddenly, as if a clear light illuminated everything at once. The world felt transparent, ordered, complete. Confidence filled his chest, and excitement pulsed through his body. Certain of his realization, Kenji went to see his elderly teacher, Master Tyson, a man known for sharp insight and an uncanny ability to pierce spiritual illusion. He found the master in a small room, quietly arranging flowers in a simple vase. Each movement was slow, attentive, ordinary. "Master," Kenji declared proudly, standing tall with unmistakable certainty, "after all these years of practice, I have attained full enlightenment. I am now a Buddha." Master Tyson did not look up. He finished placing the final flower, then walked calmly to the corner of the room where a wooden staff rested against the wall. Without warning, he lifted the staff and struck Kenji sharply on the head. Kenji staggered back, stunned. Pain flared. His face burned with shock and indignation. "Why did you strike me?" he cried. "I told you I am awakened. I am a Buddha. How could you treat a Buddha this way?" The master placed the staff down gently and looked at him with quiet warmth. "I have met many Buddhas in my life," he said, "and I have noticed something interesting. When you strike a stone Buddha, it makes a dull sound and does not move. When you strike a bronze Buddha, it rings clearly through the air. But when you strike a living Buddha—" He paused, meeting Kenji's eyes. "It says, ouch." Silence filled the room. Slowly, the meaning settled. Kenji had been so focused on becoming something extraordinary that he had overlooked the awakened nature present in his very human response. This is why the Buddha warned, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." The teaching points beyond shock to something subtle and essential. Awakening cannot be claimed as an achievement. The moment we grasp it as an identity, it turns into another illusion. Zen explains that the ego is clever. The same mind that seeks recognition through success can seek it through spirituality. Enlightenment becomes another trophy, another way to feel special. This is spiritual materialism, harder to detect because it wears sacred clothing. When chasing wealth, ego is obvious. When chasing awakening, ego hides behind devotion. How often do practices become identities? We meditate to be someone who meditates. We study wisdom to be a spiritual person. Each subtle role pulls us away from simple presence. True awakening does not erase our humanity. It embraces it completely. It does not remove pain, emotion, or response. It allows them to arise without resistance. A Buddha still feels the staff, still says, ouch, and remains fully awake within it. Dogen taught, to study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. Kenji studied deeply, but had not yet released the need to become special. His declaration revealed attachment, not freedom. Realization is not about collecting insights. It is about recognizing what was never absent. Buddha nature is not earned. It is revealed when we stop trying to improve upon what already is. Practice does not add clarity. It removes the dust. Like polishing a mirror, nothing new appears. What was hidden becomes visible. The staff was not punishment. It was compassion, a sudden return to reality. Tonight, as you reflect on your own path, notice whether you are striving to become something or gently recognizing what is already here. Can you feel the difference between seeking awakening and being awake to this moment? As the Buddha once said, "You are perfect as you are, and there is room to grow." Even the ouch is Buddha nature speaking clearly. Now, let us continue with a story about how our inner world shapes what we experience outside. This is the tale of the two travelers. In a lively marketplace town, where merchants called out their wares and travelers paused between journeys, a Zen teacher operated a small tea stall. People came not only for tea, but for his quiet clarity. One day, two men arrived separately, each carrying the same question. The first man approached with tense shoulders and restless eyes. Before even sitting, he asked, "I'm thinking of moving here. What is this town like?" The master studied him calmly and replied with a question instead. "What was your last town like?" The man answered quickly, as if ready to release long-held complaints. "It was awful. People were selfish and unfriendly. Neighbors were careless. Shopkeepers rude. I couldn't wait to escape." The master nodded. "This town is much the same, he said gently. "I don't think you would be happy here." The man scowled, muttered, and walked away, convinced nothing ever changed. Soon after, another traveler arrived. His posture was relaxed, his eyes curious and open. "I'm thinking of moving here," he said warmly. "What is this town like?" Again, the master asked, "What was your last town like?" The man smiled. "It was wonderful. People helped one another. There was kindness and belonging. I loved it deeply. I'm only leaving to explore something new." The master smiled. "This town is much the same," he said. "I think you will feel at home here." The man bowed gratefully and left with light steps. The Buddha taught, "All that we are arises with our thoughts." We do not see the world as it is, but as we are. The master answered both men truthfully. Each revealed their inner weather. Some minds search for conflict. Others notice connection. The same place, different worlds. This does not deny hardship or injustice. It reveals how perception shapes experience. As Kabat-Zinn observed, "Wherever you go, there you are." Changing places cannot heal inner patterns, but awareness can. Tonight, notice the lens through which you see others. What are you expecting to find? The greatest transformation comes not from changing surroundings, but from softening perception. Now, we turn to a story about fear and the power of returning to what is real. This is the captured warrior. In ancient Japan, during an age of constant conflict, a skilled warrior was defeated in battle. Captured, disarmed, he was thrown into a dark stone cell. The door closed with final weight. As night fell, his mind filled with terror. He knew the customs of war. Interrogation would come. Pain would follow. His thoughts raced ahead, creating suffering long before anything arrived. And there, in the darkness, the real battle began. And when they had taken whatever answers they believed they could force from him, or when his silence exhausted their patience, there would be death. As these images repeated themselves in his mind, the warrior's heart thundered in his chest, so violently that he feared it might tear itself apart. His breath shortened and quickened. Cool night air did nothing to calm the heat of fear rising through his body. Sleep felt impossible. His thoughts painted scene after scene of pain and loss, each one more vivid than the last, like a dark dream looping without mercy. Time passed without kindness. He paced the narrow cell, then pressed his back against the cold stone, then lay upon the rough straw scattered across the floor. Nothing eased the weight of anticipation. Nothing silenced the voice predicting suffering. And then, at the deepest edge of despair, a memory surfaced. He heard the quiet voice of his old Zen teacher, the master he had studied with long before he chose the life of battle. The voice arrived gently, as if seated beside him in the darkness. "Tomorrow is not real," the teacher had once said. "It is only a thought. The only thing that exists is now." At first, fear resisted the teaching. How could tomorrow be unreal when danger felt so close, so unavoidable? Yet as the warrior sat still, allowing the words to settle, something began to soften. He noticed his breathing. In this moment, air moved freely in and out. He felt the straw beneath him, rough but bearable. He heard the wind passing through distant trees, a sound unchanged by war or fear, the same wind that had moved through forests for centuries. In this moment he was not being tortured. In this moment he was not dying. In this moment, there was simply a man sitting quietly, alive, aware, breathing. The horrors that had seemed so solid revealed themselves as images of a future that had not yet arrived and might never arrive at all. As this understanding deepened, peace settled naturally, like dust falling to the ground when the air grows still. His breath slowed. His heartbeat steadied. And for the first time since his capture, a small smile touched his face. The master's teaching had released him from a prison far tighter than stone. The prison of imagined tomorrows. Within moments, sleep carried him gently away. The Buddha taught, if you wish to know your past, look at your present conditions. If you wish to know your future, look at your present actions. The warrior's discovery reveals a quiet truth. We only ever live in this moment. Why, then, do we suffer so deeply over what has not yet happened? Zen teachings remind us that the mind evolved to protect us, constantly scanning for threats, preparing for danger. This ability saves lives in real emergencies. But when imagination is mistaken for reality, it becomes the root of suffering. Look gently at your own experience. How much anxiety arises from futures that exist only in thought? A conversation not yet spoken, a result not yet known, a fear not yet proven real. Planning has its place. Preparation can be wise. But when planning turns into endless worry, peace is stolen before anything has even occurred. Impermanence teaches us otherwise. Everything changes. Nothing is fixed. The warrior could not know what the next day would bring. Perhaps rescue, perhaps mercy, perhaps an ending different from every fear he imagined. The Buddha reminded us, the past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. There is only this moment. This teaching does not ask us to abandon responsibility. It invites us to return attention to what is actually here. When we rest fully in the present, we often find clarity and calm that worry never provided. The cell did not change. The uncertainty remained, but suffering dissolved when attention returned to now. This freedom is available in every anxious moment. Tonight, if your mind drifts toward tomorrow, remember the captured warrior. Ask quietly, what is truly happening right now? Breathing, resting, being. As the Buddha said, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Center the mind in the present moment. And now, we turn to a story that reveals how deeply the sense of self can hide, even from those who believe they have seen beyond it. This is the lesson of the Prime Minister. In the grand capital of an ancient dynasty, where palaces gleamed beneath the sun and scholars debated truth beneath moonlit skies, there lived a man of great achievement. The Prime Minister had earned honor through wisdom and strategy, protecting the realm and guiding prosperity. His name was respected throughout the land. Even the emperors sought his counsel. Yet despite power and recognition, he considered himself a devoted student of the Buddha's path. Each week, he set aside silk robes and ceremony, dressed simply, and visited his Zen teacher at a modest temple beyond the city. There, among weathered beams and wind chimes, he sat like any other student, listening, practicing, learning. The relationship appeared balanced. No special treatment, no false humility. One autumn afternoon, golden leaves drifting past the temple windows, the Prime Minister asked a question that troubled him. Please explain, he said respectfully, what egotism truly means in Buddhist teaching. Suddenly, the master's expression changed. His face flushed. His voice sharpened. What a foolish question, he snapped. have you learned nothing at all? The Prime Minister recoiled. Heat surged through his chest. How dare this monk speak to him this way? Did he not know his rank, his achievements, his authority? Anger rose. Pride tightened. The ego stood fully revealed. Then the master smiled gently and said, "This is egotism." The Buddha taught that ego is a veil, subtle and persistent. It hides not in calm moments, but in reaction. The ego waits patiently for its moment to defend itself. Observe your own day. Irritation, defensiveness, wounded pride. These are not failures, they are teachers. As Suzuki Roshi said, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." Ego softens not through rejection, but through gentle awareness. Tonight, as you settle into rest, notice without judgment. Release the stories. Freedom begins where clinging ends. And with this understanding, we continue forward, resting deeper in stillness. Instead, the student received only 3 quiet words. Feeling slightly disappointed, yet having nothing more to ask, he returned to his small room and sat with this simple, puzzling instruction. In the days that followed, he continued to practice. The frustration remained at first, but slowly, almost without notice, something softened. The storm of distraction lost its intensity. His body adjusted to stillness. Brief spaces of calm began to appear between thoughts, like clearings in a dense forest. By the end of the week, the practice felt entirely different. Peace visited more often. Awareness felt gentle and steady. Filled with quiet excitement, the student sought out his teacher once again, this time finding him sweeping fallen leaves in the temple courtyard. Sunlight filtered through branches above them. "Teacher," the student said with joy, "my meditation is beautiful now. I feel awake, peaceful, and deeply present. My mind is clear, my body at ease, and every sitting feels filled with light." The teacher paused his sweeping, looked at the student with the same calm eyes as before, and offered the very same reply. "It will pass." This time, the student truly heard. His delight did not collapse into disappointment, but ripened into understanding. He realized the teaching was not about meditation alone, but about the nature of all experience. The Buddha reminded us, all things that arise will pass away. Pleasant and unpleasant, confusing and clear, painful and joyful, all move like clouds across the sky of awareness. Our suffering often comes not from change itself, but from resisting it. We cling to what feels good and push away what feels difficult, forgetting that both are temporary guests. The student's struggle and his bliss were equal in one way: neither could stay. The teacher's words pointed toward a deeper refuge, not in fixed states, but in the awareness that witnesses them come and go. This awareness does not rise or fall. It does not improve or deteriorate. It simply knows. Look gently at your own life. How much energy is spent trying to hold on to good moments? How much tension arises from fighting difficult ones? Zen practice teaches a quiet balance, not indifference, but steadiness. It will pass, comforts us in pain and humbles us in pleasure. It reminds us not to build our identity on moments that cannot last. As Suzuki Roshi taught, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." We engage fully, yet hold lightly. Tonight, whatever state you are in, allow it to be. Feel it completely, and let it move on in its own time. As the Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. Awaken with diligence. From this understanding, we now turn to a story about seeking and finding. This is the sculptor's discovery. In a stone quarry beneath tall mountains, a master sculptor walked among marble blocks, his hands trained by decades of work. Morning light revealed veins of color and texture, each stone whispering its hidden form. "There is a hero in this one," he would say, "and a saint inside that one." For 40 years, he searched for one perfect block, the stone from which he could carve the ultimate image of the Buddha. He traveled far, consulted experts, searched the world's finest quarries. Yet the perfect stone never appeared. Weary and disheartened, he visited a local Zen priest whose temple stood quietly at the end of his street. The courtyard was simple, a stone well rested among moss and silence. "I have searched my entire life," the sculptor said, bowing deeply. "My work remains unfinished." The priest smiled gently. "No problem," he replied. Hope flickered. "Do you know where I can find it?" The priest pointed calmly to the well. The sculptor leaned over and looked down. In the still water, he saw his own reflection, the same eyes, the same searching face. The Buddha taught, "If you cannot find the truth where you are, where else could it be?" The sculptor understood. The perfect material was never outside. The awareness doing the seeking was the Buddha already. The well revealed the still point where searching ends. Tonight, as you notice your own longing, can you recognize the awareness that longs? The artist, the art, and the seeing are one. And with this understanding, we turn gently to a final teaching about acceptance, cycles, and true prosperity. The merchant expected ornate calligraphy, perhaps ancient phrases promising wealth, or sacred words meant to protect his lineage. Given the master's reputation, he assumed the message would be both impressive and comforting. Instead, with slow and deliberate strokes, the master wrote only 7 simple words. "Father dies. Son dies. Grandson dies." When the merchant read them, heat rushed to his face. Anger and disbelief rose together. "This is not what I asked for," he protested. "I requested a blessing for happiness and prosperity, not a message about death. Why would you give me something so dark?" The master met his frustration with steady, compassionate eyes. "Look more closely," he said gently. "If a son were to die before his father, the sorrow would be unbearable. Parents are not meant to bury their children. Such pain leaves scars that never fully fade. And if a grandson were to die before his father, the harmony of life would again be broken, bringing suffering that echoes through generations." The merchant grew quieter, his anger softening into attention. "But when life unfolds as written here," the master continued, "each generation living fully before passing on, this is the most peaceful order possible. This is true blessing." What the master offered was not a prediction, but a prayer, that life would follow its natural rhythm with the least amount of sorrow. As the Buddha taught, impermanence is sacred. No wealth can prevent change. No fortune can protect us from time. But wisdom can teach us how to live in harmony with it. The merchant had believed prosperity meant accumulation, land, gold, influence, things that could be passed down. The master pointed instead to a deeper prosperity, a family allowed to live, age, and die without tragic interruption. Seen this way, death is not a failure, but the natural completion of a life lived. The greatest wish for our loved ones is not immortality, but the grace to meet life's seasons in order. Tonight, as you consider what you truly wish for those you love, notice whether it is control or understanding. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." The Master's 7 words carried the weight of that peace. And now we turn to another teaching about the difference between skill and true mastery. This is the lesson of the archer and the bridge. A young man trained with the bow for many years. He practiced daily, in sun and rain, until his technique became flawless. His arrows flew straight and true. Targets fell one after another. His name spread across the land, and pride quietly grew alongside his skill. At last, he sought the ultimate challenge. He heard of an old Zen master in the mountains, a man said to possess unmatched wisdom and quiet mastery of the bow. If I defeat him, the young man thought, my greatness will be undeniable. He found the master's dwelling and issued his challenge boldly. The old man nodded calmly. The young archer set his target far away, drew his bow, and released. The arrow struck the center. Without pause, he fired again, splitting the first arrow in two. Satisfied, he turned proudly. The master smiled, then gestured toward the mountain path. "Come," he said softly. They climbed until the air thinned and the path narrowed. At last, they reached a deep chasm. Between the two sides lay a single fallen log, thin, weathered, and swaying above darkness. Without hesitation, the master stepped onto the log. His movements were calm, his breath steady. At the center, he drew his bow and released. The arrow struck its mark. Then he returned safely and said, "Now you." The young archer looked down. Fear flooded his body. His hands trembled. His breath became shallow. He could not step forward. The skill that once defined him had vanished in the face of fear. The master observed quietly. "You have mastered the bow," he said, "but not the mind that holds it." As the Buddha taught, the mind shapes all experience. True mastery is not found in technique alone, but in the calm awareness that remains steady even above the abyss. And with this understanding, we rest and allow the breath to slow. We often refine our abilities within safe boundaries, yet meet our true edges when uncertainty appears. The young archer's hands were steady only when the ground beneath him felt secure. When fear arrived, when danger breathed close, when life demanded more than technique, his practiced confidence quietly dissolved. His skill had been shaped by comfort, not by calm. It depended on certainty, not presence. Look gently at your own strengths. How do they respond when conditions change? When emotions rise, when outcomes matter, when the path feels narrow and unsure, do your abilities remain steady, or do they fade like mist at sunrise? In Zen practice, we cultivate an unmovable center. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to act wisely while fear is present. Not the removal of difficulty, but the steadiness that allows us to breathe within it. True training is not about perfect conditions. It is about meeting whatever arises with clarity and kindness. The master's arrow was not meant to impress. It was meant to reveal. Skill rooted only in control collapses when control is lost. Skill rooted in awareness remains. Zen teachings speak of the unborn mind, a spacious awareness untouched by circumstance. It stands whether the ground is solid or swaying. It knows how to respond without panic. Confidence born from this place does not require safety. It trusts presence itself. One action released from calm awareness carries more wisdom than 1,000 actions driven by pride. True mastery does not shine in comfort. It appears when uncertainty surrounds us. Life itself is the narrow bridge, always moving, never fixed. We learn balance not by standing still, but by walking with attention. And so, let us rest now in another story, one that whispers of surrender rather than effort. This is the story of the Crystal River. Deep within a river clear as polished glass, a community of small creatures lived along the sandy floor. Above them, the current moved endlessly, carrying the memory of mountains and distant seas. From birth, each creature was taught to hold tightly, grip the stones, cling to the roots. The elders warned, the current is dangerous. Let go and you will be lost. For generations, holding on was called survival. Yet one small creature grew tired of this constant strain. Day after day, he watched the water glide with quiet grace. While others complained of aching limbs and weary grips, he wondered what it might feel like to trust the flow. "I am weary of holding," he said softly one morning. "I do not know where the river goes, but I trust that it knows. If I continue clinging, I will fade without ever living." Fear rippled through the village. "Fool," they cried, "the current will break you against the stones." But the small creature had already chosen. He released his hold. The river seized him at once. He tumbled. He struck rock and sand. Pain arrived swiftly and without mercy. Yet he did not grasp again. Slowly, as resistance softened, the water lifted him upward. The blows ceased. The stones fell away. He was no longer dragged by the river. He was carried. Far downstream, others watched in disbelief. One of their own moved with the river's strength, effortless, free. "A savior," they whispered. "A miracle." But the flowing creature answered gently, "I am no different from you. The river lifts us all when we stop resisting. Our task is not to hold, but to trust." Still, they tightened their grip. And when he disappeared beyond the bend, they clung to the story, not the truth. The Buddha taught that we lose only what we cling to. We grasp for certainty, believing it will protect us, yet in that grasping, we create tension and pain. Life is movement. Change is its nature. When we resist, we tire ourselves fighting what cannot be stopped. Notice where you are holding tightly now. A role, a memory, an image of who you believe you must be. The river flows whether we resist or not. Peace comes not from stopping it, but from floating with awareness. And as your breath slows, as the mind softens, allow yourself, just for this moment, to loosen your grip and rest within the gentle current of being. We are always standing at a quiet crossroads. One path leads toward exhaustion, resistance, and struggle. The other opens into surrender, trust, and ease. Life continues to move regardless of our choice. The question is whether we move with it or spend our strength pushing against what cannot be stopped. The Buddha reminded us that change is not an interruption of life. Change is life itself. Water does not argue with the mountain. It does not demand a different shape of land. It listens. It finds a way. When we soften our resistance, something remarkable appears. Effort becomes lighter. Action becomes simpler. What once felt like struggle begins to feel like guidance. As you rest here now, breathing slowly, ask yourself without force or judgment, what am I ready to loosen my grip on tonight? A worry that has circled the mind too many times. a regret that no longer needs to be carried, an old story about who you must be. Feel the gentle movement of this moment, the quiet rise and fall of breath, the steady pulse of being alive. You do not need to know where it leads. You only need to allow it. The Buddha offered this simple invitation: release what has passed. Release what has not yet arrived. Release even what you are holding right now. When we trust in this way, we discover a quiet truth. The current we feared would undo us is the same current that carries us home. And now, drifting gently onward, we arrive at another story. One about recognition. One about wisdom hiding in plain sight. This is the lesson of the visitor and the holy man. Across the countryside, people spoke of a man of great wisdom. They said he could answer any question, untangle any confusion, and illuminate the path for even the most troubled soul. He lived high upon a mountain, far from noise and distraction, in a simple house surrounded by sky and silence. A man from the valley below heard these stories and felt hope awaken. For a long time, he had carried a problem that would not loosen its hold. He had asked friends. He had consulted elders. He had searched for clarity. Nothing had eased his restless heart. So he began the climb. The path was steep. The sun was unforgiving. His breath grew heavy. His legs ached. Still, he pressed on, believing that wisdom lived somewhere above him. When at last he reached the small house at the mountain's peak, his body was weary, but his expectations were high. Surely, he thought, this holy man would be unmistakable. He knocked. An elderly servant opened the door. His clothing was plain, his posture humble, his presence unremarkable. "I have come to see the holy man," the visitor said, already peering past the old servant, searching for something greater. The servant smiled gently and invited him inside. They walked through the house together. Room after room passed quietly by. Simple furnishings, ordinary objects, nothing special, nothing sacred. Before the visitor realized it, they had reached the back door. Confusion rose like heat. "I did not climb all this way for nothing," he protested. "Where is the holy man?" The servant turned, eyes calm, voice steady. "You have already met him," he said. "And now, hear this teaching. See each person you meet as a holy being. If you can do this sincerely, the problem that brought you here will dissolve on its own." The visitor stood silent, stunned. The wisdom he sought had not arrived in the form he expected. And because of that, he nearly missed it. The Buddha taught that our present actions reveal both our past and our future. What we see depends on how we look. Wisdom does not announce itself. It waits to be recognized. So often we search for truth in distant places, in impressive forms, in people who look the part. Yet the deepest teachings often wear ordinary faces. The visitor's true obstacle was not his problem. It was his expectation. Consider your own encounters. The stranger who offers a kind word. The worker who moves with quiet care. The child who speaks without pretense. Any one of them may be your teacher. When we learn to see the sacred everywhere, the need to feel special dissolves. The ego softens. Learning becomes effortless. Zen teaches that to study the path is to study the self, and to study the self fully is to forget it. Wisdom multiplies when it is shared. Like a candle lighting another, nothing is lost. As you reflect on the people in your life, ask gently, where might I be overlooking truth because it appears too ordinary? And now, flowing onward, we turn to a final story for this night. One that reveals the masks we wear and the quiet hunger beneath them. This is the tale of the hungry abbot and the generous robe. In a prosperous quarter of an ancient city, a wealthy man lived behind high walls and carved gates. His house overflowed with comfort. His reputation mattered greatly to him. On a rainy morning, a monk arrived at his gate. His robes were worn, his sandals thin, his bowl empty. The gatekeeper dismissed him without pause. Later that same day, the monk returned, this time wearing ceremonial robes of gold and purple. Immediately, doors opened. Bows were given. A feast was prepared. But when the food was served, the monk placed his robe before the meal and said calmly, "This food is for the robe, not for me." And with that, he departed. The lesson lingered long after he was gone. Appearances deceive. Value does not always shine. And wisdom often arrives dressed in humility. As your breathing deepens, let these stories settle softly. You do not need to hold them. Simply allow them to rest with you, like leaves floating on still water as sleep draws near. Why do we form judgments so quickly, guided by clothing, status, and outward signs? Zen teachings remind us that the conditioned mind seeks shortcuts. It labels, compares, and ranks, believing this brings understanding. Yet these surface impressions spare us the deeper work of truly seeing. The wealthy household in the story reflects a habit we all carry. Notice how attention shifts toward polished shoes and confident posture. Notice how respect fades when clothing is worn or voices are unsure. We often mistake symbols for substance and overlook the quiet dignity that lives within every being. The abbot never changed. His wisdom remained steady, his compassion unmoved. Only the eyes that looked upon him were altered. Gently observe your own patterns. Do assumptions arise when you see luxury or scarcity? Do you sense how quickly worth is assigned to appearance? These habits reveal how deeply we have been taught to confuse what is visible with what is true. Zen asks a simple but profound question. Who are you beneath all roles? Are you the one dressed for importance, or the one running errands unnoticed? Are you the helper or the one asking for help? Practice points us toward the original face, the self before labels, before success or failure, before praise or dismissal. This original nature is unchanged. It does not grow richer or poorer. It is not elevated by admiration nor diminished by neglect. The abbot's gesture was a quiet mirror. By feeding the robe, he revealed how often we honor masks instead of meeting the human heart beneath them. Imagine how your days might soften if each encounter were met with this understanding. The server, the clerk, the stranger passing by, each carries the same essential worth. As this awareness settles, let us move into another story, one that speaks of burdens we cannot see yet feel every day. This is the story of the empty backpack. In a peaceful monastery garden, where dew rested gently on stone paths, a young seeker approached his teacher. His question was heavy, though spoken softly. Why do I carry my past wherever I go? Why does it return again and again? The teacher listened quietly, then pointed toward a maze woven of translucent silk. Walk through it, he said, and carry this with you. He handed the seeker a backpack. It is heavy, he added gently. At first, the pack seemed manageable, but with each step, the weight pressed harder. Inside the maze, paths closed unexpectedly. Others appeared beyond the silk, moving freely where he could not. Weariness grew. The burden cut into his shoulders. At last, he removed the pack and looked inside. It was empty, yet when he lifted it again, the weight remained. A quiet voice arose within him. The weight is not in the bag. It is within you. Memories surfaced, old wounds, harsh words, forgotten anger. With each remembered pain, the burden grew heavier. Understanding dawned gently. He began to forgive, not loudly, not dramatically, but honestly. With each release, the pack grew lighter. Warmth replaced tension. The maze softened. Soon the weight vanished entirely. And in stillness, he rose above the maze, seeing clearly what had once trapped him. Back beside his teacher, he spoke with calm joy. I was carrying myself. The teacher smiled and walked on. The Buddha taught that holding anger is like gripping fire meant for another. We are the ones burned. The empty backpack reminds us that the past itself does not bind us. Our grasping does. We cling because pain becomes familiar, because wounds become identity, because forgiveness is misunderstood as approval rather than freedom. Notice what you may still be carrying. Old resentments, unspoken grief, stories that no longer serve you. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It releases the weight of repeating it. As the breath slows and the body softens, imagine gently setting the backpack down. You do not need it now. There is nothing to carry into sleep, nothing to prove, nothing to protect. Only rest, floating lightly, held by the quiet compassion of this moment. Tonight, as you gently prepare to rest, it may be worth noticing what unseen burdens are still resting within you. Perhaps there is something you have been carrying quietly for a long time. A thought, a regret, a belief, or a story about yourself that no longer needs to be held. You may softly ask yourself, without judgment or urgency, does this still support my well-being, or am I ready to place it down and breathe more freely? The Buddha gently reminded us that you, as much as any being in this vast universe, are worthy of kindness, care, and compassion. Freedom does not begin with punishment or striving, but with a tender willingness to forgive oneself and to walk lightly through the changing landscapes of life. Now, let us drift into a quiet teaching about faith and doubt, about how the mind shapes the world it inhabits. This is known as the story of the wishing tree. A poor man once wandered slowly through a thick and shadowed forest. His body moved forward, yet his thoughts were heavy, weighed down by unpaid debts, broken relationships, and dreams postponed for another time. Each step seemed to echo his worries back to him, layer upon layer of concern pressing upon his heart. Above him, sunlight filtered softly through leaves, painting calm patterns upon the earth. But the man noticed none of it. His attention remained locked within the restless turning of his thoughts, each worry giving birth to the next. Eventually, tired in both body and mind, he leaned back against what appeared to be an ordinary tree. Its trunk was broad and steady, its surface cool and smooth against his back. As he rested there, breathing slowly, he became aware of a deep thirst. "I wish I had something to drink," he whispered, almost without intention. At once, as though shaped by the silence itself, a cup of clear, cool water appeared in his hand. Startled, he examined it carefully, turning it as if expecting the illusion to dissolve. Yet the water remained pure and inviting. With cautious curiosity, he lifted the cup and drank. The water was refreshing beyond anything he had known, cool and sweet, soothing his dry throat completely. "That is unusual," he murmured, still unsure. Just then, his stomach rumbled with hunger. Without much thought, another wish formed. Before him appeared a simple meal, nourishing and fresh. Warm bread, ripe fruit, and vegetables that seemed newly gathered from the earth. He ate slowly, amazed by each bite. "My wishes are answered," he whispered, wonder spreading through his body like warmth. Encouraged, he spoke again. "If this is so, I wish for a home of my own." Beyond the tree, in a quiet clearing, a beautiful house appeared. Sunlight filled its rooms, gardens bloomed with color, and everything reflected comfort and peace. Joy surged within him as he approached. "If I live here," he thought, "I will need help." With that wish, kind and gentle servants appeared, ready to assist. Laughter rose from him, light and astonished. "And what is a home without companionship?" He added aloud. He wished for a loving partner. A graceful woman appeared beside him, her presence calm and warm, her gaze filled with understanding. Yet as she reached for his hand, an old voice stirred within his mind. A familiar whisper of doubt. "This cannot be real," he said, stepping back. "People like me do not receive such fortune. This must be an illusion." As those words left him, everything slowly faded. The woman, the servants, the house, the meal, all dissolved into emptiness. Once again, he stood alone beside the tree, his worries returning like well-worn companions. "I knew it," he muttered, walking away. And soon, his mind returned to its familiar habits of complaint and fear. The Buddha taught that we are shaped by our thoughts, that the world we experience arises from the mind itself. This story reveals how belief creates, and how doubt can quietly undo what is offered. So often, we trust our limitations more than our possibilities. We grow accustomed to struggle, until ease feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. How many moments of kindness, beauty, or opportunity have passed through your day unnoticed or dismissed? How often has doubt caused you to turn away from what you were seeking? The wishing tree reflects a simple Zen truth. Life responds to what we believe is possible. Openness reveals abundance. Cynicism conceals it. The man had everything he needed, yet his belief in unworthiness outweighed his experience. This is the quiet sorrow of self-doubt. Zen teaches balance, to recognize our inherent worth while remaining open to growth. In daily life, wishing trees appear often. In friendships, opportunities, and moments of joy. Each time we retreat into familiar limitation, we walk past them unaware. There is a difference between wise doubt and harmful doubt. One questions to find truth. The other assumes unworthiness and calls it realism. Tonight, as you reflect gently, notice where you may have turned away from receiving. A compliment dismissed. A moment of happiness shortened. As the Buddha said, one candle may light thousands without losing its flame. Receiving does not diminish abundance. It allows it to flow. Now, let us continue with a story about desire and contentment. This is the journey of the stone cutter. High among mountain villages lived a humble stone cutter. Each morning, he climbed winding paths with tools upon his shoulder, singing old songs that echoed through the valleys. Though he owned little, his heart felt full. His work, the mountains, and the rhythm of effort satisfied him completely. One day, he was called to work on a nobleman's estate. There he saw wealth and grandeur unlike anything he had known. For the first time, desire stirred. "If only I were rich," he sighed. A voice answered, granting his wish. Soon he lived in luxury. Yet his gaze turned upward again, to the king. "I wish I were king," he thought, and became so. Then came the sun, then the clouds, then the rock, until finally, as a rock, he felt the chisel at work. "I wish to be a man again." Returned to his old path, he felt contentment bloom deeper than before. The Buddha taught that contentment is the greatest wealth. Desire endlessly shifts its target, but peace arises from recognizing sufficiency. True transformation is not becoming something else, but seeing clearly what has always been present. Now, let us move gently toward the next teaching, about patience and urgent seeking. This is the story of the one-eyed student. In a quiet valley surrounded by cherry blossoms, a young seeker traveled far to meet a renowned Zen master. Filled with determination, he bowed deeply. "Master," he asked, "if I practice with complete dedication, how long will it take to find Zen?" The old teacher observed him silently, then replied, 10 years. The young man's eyes widened in surprise. 10 years felt impossibly distant to the young seeker. Enlightenment seemed urgent, essential, as though happiness itself depended upon reaching it quickly. In his mind, there had to be a way to shorten the journey. Surely, he thought, with the right effort, the path can be made faster. Leaning forward, his voice filled with intensity, he asked, "Master, what if I devote myself completely? What if I meditate longer than the others, study more teachings, and train with greater discipline? If I truly give everything, how long would it take then?" The master remained still for a moment, listening deeply. Then he answered calmly, 20 years. Confusion crossed the student's face, followed by frustration. The reply felt illogical, almost unfair. How could greater effort lead to slower progress? Believing the master had misunderstood his sincerity, the young man pressed on. "Master," he said, urgency rising in his voice, "I don't think you see how serious I am. What if I dedicate every waking hour to practice, sleep only when absolutely necessary, and push myself beyond all limits? If I give my entire life to this, how long would it take then?" Without hesitation, the master replied, 30 years. At this point, the student felt completely unsettled. Nothing aligned with what he believed about learning and improvement. In every other discipline, art, scholarship, physical training, greater effort produced faster results. Why should the spiritual path be any different? Unable to contain his confusion, he asked, "Master, I do not understand. Each time I say I will work harder, you say the journey grows longer. This feels backwards. Why is this so?" The master's expression softened. His voice carried the warmth of compassion, like a parent guiding a child with patience. "When you keep one eye fixed on the destination," he said gently, "you have only one eye left to see the path." Buddhist wisdom reminds us that even the longest journey begins with a single step. But this story reveals something deeper, the quiet paradox of spiritual seeking. Why does intense fixation on awakening slow the process rather than hasten it? Zen teaches that when we cling too tightly to outcomes, we divide our attention. Part of the mind is always measuring progress, judging distance, and imagining arrival. And that part of the mind is no longer fully present. Consider learning a musical instrument. If half your attention is consumed by thoughts of future mastery, there is less awareness available for the gentle precision of each note, each movement. True music arises when the player becomes absorbed in the moment itself, not when the mind rushes toward applause yet to come. Zen calls this subtle trap the gaining mind. The habit of turning practice into a transaction, meditating to obtain peace, studying to accumulate wisdom, cultivating kindness to become someone better. This mindset quietly divides us in two, who we are now and who we believe we must become. The Buddha taught, what you are seeking is already present in the place from which you seek. This points directly to the Master's lesson. Awakening is not something we acquire. It is something we recognize. It is not a distant peak we must climb toward, but the awareness already carrying each step. Urgent seeking often assumes that this moment is lacking, that something essential is missing. Yet Zen reminds us that the very mind searching for truth is the same awareness it longs to discover. Reflect gently on your own life. Have your deepest insights not often appeared when you were not trying to force them? Perhaps while walking quietly, washing dishes, or sitting without purpose. In those moments, understanding arises naturally, without striving, without pressure. A Zen teacher once said, "Your ordinary mind is the way." This teaching invites us to look closely at how we practice. Are we practicing to escape who we are, or to meet ourselves more fully? Are we walking the path to arrive somewhere else, or discovering that the path itself is already home? The student's misunderstanding was not his longing for wisdom, but his belief that it existed somewhere beyond the present moment. Each promise to work harder pulled him further from ease, like chasing a shadow that retreats the faster you run. Zen practice gently offers another way, what is called just sitting. Meditation without agenda, awareness without grasping, presence without measuring. Here, nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be added, and in this quiet simplicity, the path reveals itself naturally, one breath, one moment at a time. This understanding does not invite passivity, nor does it ask us to abandon sincerity. Rather, it calls us to offer full presence to each moment of practice, allowing clarity to unfold gently, instead of being forced through effort or strain. You may notice this truth beyond meditation. In relationships, striving too hard to be loved can quietly push others away. In creative work, pressing for inspiration often blocks it, while relaxed attention lets ideas arise naturally, like breath flowing without command. Tonight, as you sense the mind rushing ahead, toward the person you hope to become, the peace you wish to reach, the understanding you long to grasp, can you remember the Master's guidance? Can you gently return both eyes to the path beneath your feet, and discover that the journey itself already holds what you believed waited at the end? The Buddha spoke of this truth when he said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." By walking with undivided awareness, we begin to see that each step is already complete. As our journey continues, we turn now to a quiet warning, a story that reveals the subtle danger of spiritual pride. This is known as the tale of the clever monkey. Long ago, in ancient China, the Prince of Wu set out on a pleasure boat toward Monkey Mountain, a place renowned for its beauty and wildlife. Surrounded by guards and attendants, the prince approached with the ease of one accustomed to command, expecting the world to bend naturally around his presence. When the monkeys in the forest noticed the royal procession, Panic spread through the trees. Chattering cries echoed as they scrambled upward, seeking safety among the highest branches. Moments before, the forest had been alive with playful sound. Now it fell quiet, broken only by rustling leaves. Yet one monkey remained. He showed no fear at all. With effortless grace, he leapt from branch to branch, swinging, spinning, displaying his agility as though performing a deliberate spectacle. His movements were smooth, confident, each gesture suggesting superiority over his fleeing companions. The Prince of Wu watched, irritation growing. Here was a mere animal showing no reverence for authority, appearing to mock the prince's power through its calm indifference. Determined to assert control, the prince lifted his bow and released an arrow. To everyone's astonishment, the monkey caught the arrow mid-flight, as easily as plucking a falling leaf from the air. He glanced at it briefly, then tossed it aside without concern. The prince's face darkened. Humiliated, he shouted an order. Arrows filled the sky. This time, the monkey could not escape them all. Overwhelmed by their number, he was struck and fell lifeless to the ground, his remarkable skill rendered meaningless against overwhelming force. Turning to his companion, Yen Pui, the prince spoke quietly. "Did you see? That creature trusted in his cleverness. He believed himself untouchable. Remember this. Do not rely on distinction or talent when dealing with others." Yen Pui took this teaching deeply to heart. Upon returning home, he reflected on his own reputation and achievements, wondering whether they, too, had quietly become sources of pride. He sought out a humble sage and devoted himself to dissolving everything that made him appear exceptional. He renounced pleasures tied to status, and gradually concealed every trait that once set him apart. Through patient practice, he became so ordinary, so unremarkable, that people no longer knew how to categorize him. Yet in his simplicity, they sensed something profound. They honored him not for what he displayed, but for the quiet depth that surrounded his presence. The Buddha expressed this wisdom simply: those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. This story reveals the danger of turning insight into identity. Why do we feel compelled to demonstrate wisdom, to appear advanced, to be seen as special? Zen teaches that the ego can quietly claim even genuine realization, using it to reinforce separation and superiority. Qualities such as calm, clarity, or compassion may naturally arise through practice. But when we cling to them, when we measure ourselves against others, they become subtle traps. True progress becomes quieter, not louder. Deeper wisdom leaves fewer traces, not more. The more awakening unfolds, the less there is to defend. Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki spoke of "don't know mind," the humility that recognizes how vast the mystery of existence truly is. The monkey's tragedy was believing his cleverness made him special, rather than seeing it as a temporary expression of the same life moving through all beings. In this understanding, nothing needs to be proven, and nothing needs to be displayed. Only presence remains, simple, ordinary, and deeply at peace. The Buddha once taught, "Better than 1,000 empty words is one word that brings peace." Yen Pui came to understand this truth deeply. By setting aside distinction, by becoming nothing special, he discovered a quieter form of influence, one that touched others not through display, but through simple presence. Reflect gently on your own path. Can you notice moments when insight becomes identity, when calm, compassion, or understanding quietly turns into a reason to feel separate. Sometimes even meditation experiences, emotional insight, or kind actions become subtle ways of measuring ourselves against others. Each time practice becomes a label, we repeat the monkey's mistake, turning wisdom into performance. Tonight, as you rest in stillness, can you explore the freedom of being nobody special? Can you feel the peace that arises not from demonstrating wisdom, but from resting in the ordinary miracle of awareness itself? The Buddha reminded us, those free from resentful thoughts surely find peace. And the deepest peace appears when we even release attachment to being peaceful. Now, let us continue with a story about the limits of understanding and the quiet honesty of not knowing. This is the teaching of the Emperor and Master Gudo. Long ago in Japan, an emperor accustomed to clear answers and unquestioned authority requested a private meeting with Master Gudo, a Zen teacher widely respected for his insight. The emperor carried sincere curiosity, especially about life, death, and what lies beyond ordinary perception. Seated in a chamber usually reserved for matters of state, he felt confident posing even the deepest questions. Surely, he believed, an enlightened master would hold answers to mysteries that had troubled humanity for ages. Master Gudo, the emperor asked plainly, what happens to an enlightened person after death? He expected a profound explanation, teachings of rebirth, subtle realms, or eternal awareness beyond the body. Instead, Master Gudo looked at him calmly and replied with complete sincerity, "How should I know?" The emperor was startled. This revered teacher, admired across the land, was openly admitting not knowing. "But, Master," the emperor insisted, "you are enlightened. Surely you must understand these things." Gudo answered simply, "Yes, Your Majesty, but I am not a dead man." Within this brief exchange rests a deep teaching. True wisdom does not pretend. It does not reach beyond experience to satisfy curiosity or expectation. The Buddha expressed this humility clearly, "I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance." Spiritual maturity is marked not by having answers to everything, but by honoring the limits of what can be known. Why do we expect spiritual teachers to explain realities they have not directly experienced? Zen draws a clear line between ideas and lived truth, between speculation and knowing. Master Gudo's response was not a failure of wisdom, but its clearest expression. He refused to speak beyond experience, even before power and authority. Consider how often in daily life we pretend certainty, offering strong opinions, giving confident advice, or speaking as though outcomes were guaranteed. We fear saying, "I don't know." The emperor believed enlightenment should provide cosmic knowledge, when in truth it offers a different relationship with uncertainty. Zen practice cultivates what is called don't know mind. Not ignorance, but openness. A spacious awareness that does not rush to fill mystery with belief. Zen Master Linji taught, there is nothing special to do, nothing special to learn. Awakening does not grant supernatural information. A living teacher understands living. What lies beyond death remains unknown until it is directly encountered. The Buddha encouraged investigation over belief, saying, "Do not accept something simply because it is spoken by authority. Test it through experience, and hold only what leads to the good and the true." Gudo's teaching reveals the freedom of releasing opinions. How much energy is spent thinking about what cannot be known? How much suffering arises from imagined futures? Look gently at your own life. Where do you pretend certainty to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty? What would shift if you could say, "I don't know," with ease and honesty? The emperor sought answers about death from someone fully alive. Yet wisdom is not found by solving the mystery of death, but by living authentically in its presence. Tonight, as questions arise, about the future, about others, about existence itself, can you remember Master Buddha's simplicity? Can you rest inside not knowing and discover its quiet intelligence? The Buddha reminded us, true wisdom is knowing how little we know. As our time together draws to a gentle close, notice what has shifted within you. The world outside remains the same, yet something inside may feel softer, more open, more still. These ancient teachings do not demand attention. They whisper. And in that whisper, a deep quiet settles, not something you have gained, but something you have uncovered. Rest here. Nothing more is needed. The Buddha once offered a quiet truth that continues to echo through time. In the end, only three things truly matter: how deeply you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you released what was never meant to remain. This spirit of grace has flowed through every story shared with you tonight. Each teaching was a soft invitation to loosen the grip, to release fixed expectations, heavy judgments, and the exhausting urge to control how life must unfold. This letting go is not a loss. It is the doorway to the deep, nourishing rest your mind and body have been quietly longing for. It is the simple key to a peace that does not fade. These teachings are more than ancient stories. They are gentle mirrors, reflecting your own natural ability to rest in calm awareness. They remind you that peace is not a distant destination earned through struggle, but a quiet return to what has always been here. Tranquility is not found at the end of effort. It is discovered when effort softens. The wisdom offered tonight does not ask you to solve anything. It asks only that you loosen your hold on worries about tomorrow and the echoes of yesterday. To watch thoughts arise and dissolve without judgment, like clouds drifting through an open sky. This understanding has already taken root within you. Like a seed placed gently in the still soil of awareness, it will grow in its own time, offering shelter, clarity, and ease whenever you return to it. As you now cross the quiet threshold of sleep, carry with you this feeling of gentle release. Remember, the calm you sense right now is never far away. It does not live in a voice, a story, or a technique. It lives in your own presence. These reflections will continue to settle softly within you, guiding your waking moments with kindness and your resting moments with peace. They walk beside you on the path, not pushing, not pulling, but illuminating the way with quiet strength and compassion. Thank you for sharing this stillness with Silent Monk. Rest deeply, sleep gently,